Hello there, my name is Sebastian Frocari. I'm from Edward R. Murrow High School, and this is my project, Bioremediation of Gowanus Canal water using Salvinia minima, Elodea canadensis, biochar, and activated charcoal on levels of nitrates, iron, phosphates, and dyes in water, a riparian buffer approach. Water is essential for survival and for basic living. However, many people still don't have access to clean water. The dirty water that I used was from the Gowanus Canal, New York City, which is one of the most contaminated waters in the country. In this experiment, I aims to clean water in a healthy and very cheap way. The four contaminants that I studied were iron, dyes, phosphates, and nitrates. All four of these contaminants could in some way cause cancer or cause harm to a human being or organism. Some main filtrates that were used were activated charcoal, biochar, Salvinia minima, and Elodea canadensis. These filtrates were used because of their ability to biosorb or to filter out heavy metals and contaminants from water. My hypothesis is if a riparian buffer is simulated with different sediments such as biochar, activated charcoal, Salvinia minima, Elodea canadensis, then the levels of nitrates, phosphates, and dyes will decrease in water and hence increase the water quality of the Gowanus. The mode of my experiment was to create a riparian buffer simulation. Now, a riparian buffer is usually a strip of land inside of a body of water that has different plants that are very good at filtering out water to increase the quality of the water. However, I used 9 2-liter plastic bottles in which I cut out a side in order to put my sediments inside. The sediments on the top level were the straw, the activated charcoal. In the middle, there was the biochar, and at the bottom, there was the Salvinia minima and the Elodea canadensis. I went to the Gowanus Canal and I got 2 gallons of Gowanus Canal water. We created our own contaminated water with potassium phosphate, iron 3 chloride, and ammonium nitrate. And then we used some tap water as the control. We took about 2 liters of this water, we put it in the top level of our buffer, and we tested the levels of nitrates, phosphates, and iron before we put the water in and after we took the water out of level 1 and level 2 and level 3. The results of my experiment were pretty promising. There was a 100% reduction in nitrates from the very beginning to the end of the 9 to 12 days that we tested the water. And for iron, it was a little less promising because there was no iron in the environmental or control groups of the experiment. There was only iron in the contaminated water. For phosphates, there was a similar reduction. There was still 100% reduction, although it was a lot slower than the nitrates. The percent reduced for the nitrates is pretty straightforward. It was pretty linear. The environmental reduced a little faster than the contaminated, and there was no nitrates in the control. For the percent reduced for the phosphates and iron, it was pretty much the same, in which there was a linear reduction. The phosphates for the environmental were a little closer, a little faster than the contaminated. For the phosphates, and the iron was pretty fast in being filtered out. All in all, this experiment was pretty successful because the water was cleaned and there was a 100% reduction of all of my contaminants as presented by my background research. It was my hypothesis was proven. Some sources of error was that a lot of the water evaporated from the bottles because the bottles were very opened. So after leaving the water there for 3 days, a lot of the water evaporated. And a lot of the sediments that were inside of the bottles, because the caps were open, would fall in with the water into the next levels of the buffer. And if I were to do this experiment again, I'd probably find a way to keep just the water flowing through and not the sediments, because the water started turning a dark brown color. I'd also find a way to cover the bottles so that the water wouldn't evaporate. This was my project, Bioremediation of Gowanus Canal water. I'm Sebastian Fracari. Thank you for your time.